ChowDownChou or random gaming, depending on what you're watching. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to ChowDownChou MMA Show episode number 2. Dose. That's all the language I know. Anyways, it's been a while since I made an MMA edition of ChowDownChou. Well, honestly, it's been like 2 weeks, which feels like a very long time in quarantine. But nonetheless, I'm so glad to have MMA back in my life. We've had 3 fantastic fight cards this past week, and I initially thought about making a ChowDownChou MMA show right after UFC 249. But then I thought, you know what? We're going to get 2 more cards in less than a week. I might as well ride all 3 cards out and just present it all in one big bundle, one giant edition of ChowDownChou MMA Show. Since I got no other cards to preview right now, I would spend the entire show giving you my thoughts on the aforementioned 3 cards. And so I'm going to break it down by chronological order, starting in with UFC 249, Gaethje versus Ferguson, then going into, I believe they call it UFC Jacksonville with Anthony Smith and Glover Teixeira, then going into UFC Florida with Walt Harris and Alistair Overeem. Well, no longer Overeem, now it's just Old Man Overeem with the technical jab and the grappling. Anyways, so yes, so I will start, without further ado, I will start with UFC 249. And UFC 249 was the big event to lead us back into sporting. We haven't had sports in so long. So much was made about the precautions and all the protocols surrounding UFC 249 regarding to the coronavirus. I think that sort of diminished the spotlight that should have been put on just how fantastic the fights are, because the fights were truly fantastic. And I think because the card was so stacked, it almost stacked to a point where you expect it to be spectacular. I was actually kind of let down by the card just a tiny bit, just because I don't think it lived up to the enormous hype that all the namesake on the card suggested. But nonetheless, it was a fantastic night of mixed martial arts, and I will start breaking it down for you. I think I will start at the top, and I will go work my way down. So the 2 title fights, right? Number 1, Gaethje defeating Tony Ferguson by 5th round TKO with strikes at the 4-minute mark to win the interim lightweight title. That fight was a little bit hard to watch for me because I am a huge Tony Ferguson fan. It's been 8 years since he lost a fight. He basically destroyed everyone in the lightweight division, but he got butchered that night. Justin Gaethje fought at the best performance I've ever seen out of Justin Gaethje. There's no brash movement. There's no wasted punches. Everything's calculated, just bombs. Boom, boom, clean 1-2s right to Tony Ferguson's face. Busted him up. And at the end of the fight, you can tell Tony Ferguson, by the way, he suffered an incredible amount of damage. Any man would have quit by that. If Michael Johnson was fighting Justin Gaethje on UFC 249, he would have tapped 5 times over. But that's not Tony Ferguson. He's Al Kukui. He's never going to tap. He ate some shots that would have turned people's lights out. That's just the bottom line, but he's too tough for his own good. But even though at the end, when Justin Gaethje started chopping those legs and touching him with those pistons of jabs, you can see he started reacting to every punch. His orbital bone was probably broken. There were cuts all over his face. His legs were all beat up, and he couldn't go on. I thought the fight could have been stopped a little earlier, but it was nonetheless a good stoppage, and it was the best Justin Gaethje we've ever seen. If you go back and look at his fights in World Series of Fighting and his first 3 fights in the UFC, this is a different Justin Gaethje. The old Justin Gaethje, after he hit Tony with a clean 1-2, would have went into kill or be killed mode right away. But this Justin Gaethje waited, picked his shots, went until Tony stepped in, and boom, caught him right with that big right hand and that left hook. He was swinging for the fences, and he connected more often than not. So he won. He captured the interim lightweight title. Good for Justin Gaethje. And I think after this fight, I think personally I felt really, really bad for Tony Ferguson. Like, I felt bad to the point where I imagined myself in Tony Ferguson's shoes. I probably would have retired on the spot because I worked so hard for nearly a decade to get that title shot that everyone in the world believes to be mine. And then this worldwide pandemic happens, and 360 punches to the goddamn face later, that title shot's no longer mine. I would be pissed off. So pissed off. And I would turn my back to the sport. But I'm not Al Kukui, and I just saw that Eddie Bravo was on Joe Rogan's show talking about how Tony's actually in good spirits. He believes this is a part of the game, and he's just going to come back stronger. Good for you, Tony. That is exactly the mindset that makes us fans love you as a human being and as a fighter. Keep doing you, and I'm sure you're going to come back stronger and get that title shot that you deserve. And so now, going into the next logical matchup, which Dana White has already talked about happening in September, Justin Gaethje going up against the reigning lightweight title holder in Khabib Nurmagomedov, probably on Fight Island because Khabib has to come in from Russia. That fight, so if you ask me who's going to win that fight a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I would say Khabib, no doubt. He's going to submit Justin or just ground and pound him probably in 2 rounds. The only chance Justin has is winning is round number 1 with a Hail Mary KO. That's what I would have said. But after seeing what Justin Gaethje pulled out of his trunk at UFC 249 against Tony Ferguson, this more labored, this more calculated Justin Gaethje who can take your head off at the right moment. It has the timing and the speed and the athleticism to do so, while also have world-class wrestling to defend any of the takedowns bringing his way. It's going to be a much more even fight than we think. So I think it all comes down to whether this UFC 249 performance from Justin Gaethje is a fluke or is this a new Gaethje. If this is a fluke, and what I said holds true, Khabib should win no problem. But if this is the new Gaethje, this is the new norm, I think Khabib's going to have a tough time. We don't know just how good Justin's wrestling stacks up to Khabib's, because you never know until you're in the cage with Khabib just how good his grappling is. But if we believe in Justin's credentials as a Division 1, not just a Division 1 wrestler, but a really good one, then Justin Gaethje should have the ability to stop Khabib from taking him down for a while. And who knows how Khabib's striking has evolved. Not Tony. See? Creature of habit. Not Tony. Justin. Justin is dangerous, and he's a legitimate threat to end Khabib's undefeated streak. So I can't wait to see that fight. But at the same time, there's been some rumors circulating about Justin Gaethje potentially taking a fight against Conor McGregor in the meantime. He came out and talked some trash about Conor. He's like, oh, amongst fighters, McGregor's losing clout. Why are you talking about him then? Don't talk about him. If he's losing clout, why is the name you're choosing to focusing on not Conor? You've said you want the fight with Khabib, and we all think that's a logical choice. Why are you talking about Conor? Because of the money involved. He's a huge money fight. He always will be. And so I don't think he's losing clout. I don't think he's losing clout at all. I think he always had that clout, and you will always have that clout. That's why Justin Gaethje's talking about it. Now, I think Conor is sort of in the driver's seats now. He already fought Cowboy. No one really is clamoring for Conor to fight any lesser competition anytime soon. So what I would suggest to Conor is, you don't want to take no fight against some lesser lightweight like Dustin Poirier or whatever. Don't do that, Conor. Wait for Justin Gaethje versus Khabib. And if Khabib wins, the UFC is willing to make Conor Khabib too, because it's such a cash cow it is. If Khabib loses, you have the choice. You can either fight Khabib again, not for the title. Screw the title. You don't need the title. You already had the title. Or you can fight Justin Gaethje for the title. Both fights makes a lot of sense and are extremely intriguing matchups that I would pay any amount of money in the world to see. So Dana, make it happen. Make Fight Island happen, Dana. Please. Please, Dana. I'm begging you. Anyways, fantastic fight. I feel a little bad about for Tony, but I also feel a little, Justin Gaethje deserved it. He fought a fantastic fight and added some new blood into the title picture. The only loser out of all of this is, of course, Tony Ferguson. But then again, he's out Kukui. He's going to come back. I believe he's going to challenge for a title really, really soon. All right. Well, next up, of course, the bantamweight title bout against Henry Cejudo and Dominick Cruz, where Henry Cejudo won at, I believe, 4:58 the second round with a TKO finish Dominick Cruz. Now, Henry came out of the gate looking fantastic. Fantastic. Fought an immaculate first round, chopping at Dom's legs, sort of standing right in front of Dom. Dom really has no sting on his punches. He's just sort of dancing around. Henry kept chopping at the legs, had Dom visibly reacting to those leg kicks, and won the round. And the second round, clash of heads, big cut opened up on Henry Cejudo's forehead, and that sort of built a little sense of urgency into Cejudo, and a lucky knee strike after, which knocked Dom down, followed up with punches on the ground when the referee stepped in. Well, when I was watching the fight, by the way, I have a watch along on YouTube, so be sure to check that out if you want to see my reaction. When I was watching the fight, I was very observant of the clock. I knew when he was following up with the punches, there was only 10 seconds left in the round. And when Dom started to get back up, I knew there were less than 5 seconds left. So in my mind, if I was the ref, I would have let the fight carry on and let Dominick Cruz live to see another round. But the ref stopped it. You can make both cases. If you look at the fight itself, there were a lot of unanswered punches on the ground, for sure. But Dom was never really out of it. And I think another huge point that you have to point out is it's forfeit. There were 2 seconds left in the round when you stopped it. It's a championship fight. Don't you feel just a little bit like you're taking away something from Dominick Cruz if you stop it with 2 seconds left in the round, when literally no one would blame you if you don't stop it and they could live to see another round when he's getting back up? I think this definitely left a sour taste in my mouth. Dom immediately came out and protested, saying how he told the ref, "You gotta let me die in here, man. You can't stop it prematurely," and he stopped it. But then a lot of people online are saying, "Hey, look at all those punches. Count them: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by Henry Cejudo. Dom's not doing anything. So what? He's getting back up. He's still getting punched. The referee did the right thing." He didn't. I don't think the referee did the right thing, because I think what a lot of people are failing to recognize the clock. And of course you can say that's not the referee's decision, but it should be something you're looking at, right? If the referee's job is to protect the fighter's safety at all costs, know that there's only 2 seconds left, and he probably will get punched once more. That's not going to make a difference. And this is a title opportunity for the guy. I'm not going to get into all the detail about how Dom said Herzog was drinking the night before, whatever. I don't care about all that. In my opinion, it was a premature stoppage. But then again, these things happen. I think Dom looked pretty good through 2 rounds. So if he wants to come back, I think you can slide him right into that upper echelon of the bantamweight division alongside, Marlon Moraes, Jose Aldo, Aljamain Sterling, Sandhagen, Petrayan. Pair him up with any one of those guys, and I think Dom could have a fantastic night out. But this definitely left a sour taste in my mouth. Immediately afterwards, I was like, oh, come on. There were 2 seconds left. Don't stop it. But these things happen in MMA. It just does. Of course, Henry Cejudo shocked the world by announcing his retirement at the age 33 after, I would say, a rather short title reign. Honestly, I don't know how I feel about it. I feel happy for the guy. You know, he thinks he has done all he can, and he surely has in the sport, and he wants to move on. Good for him. He wants to start a family. Good for him. But then again, I think there's so much left for Henry Cejudo to do. And I don't think this retirement will last. I think it's going to be one of those George St. Pierre situations where the super fights, the money fights, going to draw him out to fight again. I don't think this is going to last. Maybe it's a ploy to negotiate a better new contract. I really don't know. But either way, I'm happy for Triple C. Great job, Henry. You've done everything you could in the sport. But just know that there's a lot more for you to do. So we are all clamoring for your return before it even happens. But that also is a big news headline after UFC 249. And now going on to my boy Francis the Le Predator Ngannou defeating Jairzinho Rosenstrike. The line he had in the post-fight interview was perfect. He didn't know what he was getting into. Be careful what you wish for, was what I said immediately after the fight. If you want to challenge Francis, be ready for your soul to leave your body. And that's exactly what happened. I have a video on my YouTube channel of my immediate reaction when I was watching the fight. Go check it out. Just type ChowDownChou on YouTube. Violent knockout. You know, Francis got clipped a couple times coming in, but that left hook from hell, when he connected, Jairzinho was a lifeless heap against the cage. I really don't know what Ngannou has left to prove. He's sort of in that weird Colby Covington, Tony Ferguson before the interim title fight situation where he's no longer deniable. He's undeniable, and he should get a title shot. But then again, it sort of leads us into the heavyweight title picture with Ngannou being the #1 challenger, but the rubber match between Stipe Miocic and Daniel Cormier hasn't happened yet because Stipe talking about how he is a first responder and he has to do his job in all of this. I don't think they should strip him. I really don't think so because he's doing the right thing, quote unquote. But the heavyweight division is log jammed. You look at Alistair Overeem, who also came off of a win. You look at Francis Ngannou. You look at Curtis Blades. These people have nowhere to go if Stipe and Daniel don't fight. So they have to make it happen. If not, I wholeheartedly support an interim title fight between Daniel Cormier and Francis Ngannou. Fantastic stylistic matchup. I would be very intrigued to see how that one plays out. And plus, it moves things along. So, Stipe, if you can hear me, I know you're doing the right thing, but let the UFC make an interim title fight or just go ahead and fight Daniel Cormier soon. The heavyweight division is seriously logjam and it needs to move on. So, that's my thought on the heavyweight title picture. You know, Francis Ngannou knocking out Jairzinho wasn't really a surprise. I knew that was coming. I know Le Predator has some in the store that those hands, no one can take them. No one can take them. All right. So going into the next bout, Calvin Kattar with an immaculate right elbow knocking out Jeremy Stephens, and then following up with the left elbow, cutting him wide open, left Jeremy Stephens sitting on a bench, bleeding, not knowing where the hell he is. My boy Calvin Kattar came through clutch. Amazing fight like I predicted. These two had no quit in them. They were back and forth, hitting each other with bombs. Calvin Kattar got hit with some bombs. But ultimately, he got the better of the exchanges and hit that elbow and knocked Jeremy Stephens out. We have a star in our hands in Calvin Kattar. I already predicted this because when I saw him fight Zabit, I know he's something special because he almost won that fight. Just by a tiny margin, he almost won that fight. So we have a star in our hands in Calvin Kattar. again, the smoothest boxer in MMA. Fight me on that idea. I think you pair him up with one of the best the division has to offer. Either the Zombie, it's going to be a fantastic match. I cannot wait for that fight. Or a Yair Rodriguez. That's going to be a great fight as well. He is ready for one of the top boys. Brian Ortega. Someone like that. Put him in there. He is going to be a problem at featherweight soon. He's a problem. My boy, Kelvin Cater. Love him to death. For Jeremy Stephens, he's sort of in that weird category where he's always in entertaining fights. And he's always in those fights until he's not anymore. So I would say feed him to a young, hungry lion. Feed him to one of the next big stars coming up in the featherweight division. I don't know who that might be, but I think he deserves a couple more chances before Dana cuts him. I know his record's probably not that perfect, but feed him to someone like I can't think of a name at the top of my head right now. Since Frankie Edgar is no longer in the division, I don't know. I would love to see Ryan Hall fight, but I think Jeremy Stephens is going to get submitted in that fight. So I don't really want that fight for Stephens, but that's about the range where I think that makes sense. Give me a second. Yeah, so that's what I think makes sense for Stephens. But fantastic fight. Action-packed. Everything that I hoped it would be and more. Next up, a heavyweight bout between Greg Hardy and Jorgen De Castro. And De Castro came out chopping at the legs. Heavy leg kicks. Greg Hardy was obviously feeling them. But I think Jorgen De Castro hurt his leg at the end of the first round, the beginning of the second round, and just sort of did nothing for the rest of the rounds. And I don't know how it ended up being a 30-27. I would have given it 29-28 to Hardy, but not that action-packed, and Hardy won the fight. Hardy hasn't really lost all that much since he came to UFC. I think he's ready for a big step up in action. I think, what's that guy's name? The guy who fought in the first fight in the Overeem Harris card? Nascimento, the undefeated submission artist in the heavyweight division. I think Greg Hardy should get him. Get a actual challenge, someone who can grapple, and we'll see how Greg Hardy handles that. If he can pass that test, I think he's ready for the top 15. So yeah, that's where those are my plans for Greg Hardy. That sort of rounds out my thoughts on the main card. In the prelims, the whole Pettis-Cerrone thing, I thought Cowboy won the fight. It was a close fight. It was a good fight too, action-packed as well, as you would expect from a matchup like Pettis and Cerrone. But Cowboy should have won that fight. I feel a little bad for Cowboy that he lost, but then again, I would have felt bad for Pettis if he would have lost because they're both in a skid. I don't know where Cowboy goes from here, man. A lot of people have been saying he should fight Damian Maia at welterweight. I don't like that matchup for Cowboy. I want him to go back to lightweight because I think that's where we'll see the best Cowboy. We already saw him versus Ali Quinta, or else that's who I would have wanted him to fight. Someone in that range, someone in the top 10 who has sort of lost some fights lately. Someone like a Paul Felder, I think that would make sense for Cowboy Cerrone to come back to, since he already proved that he has what it takes to be in the top 5 at lightweight. Fight someone like a top 10 in lightweight, like a Paul Felder, someone like that. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. But again, good fight from two veterans. Hats off to them. Next up, Alexei Oleinik, Fabricio Verdum. Alexei Oleinik has never been this ripped since I started watching him fight. Came in with those weird looping punches from hell. Defeating Fabricio Verdum by split decision. Verdum looked his age. I don't know what kind of future he has in the heavyweight division, but this definitely did not serve him well in terms of a return. I don't know what the UFC has in store for him. Maybe a fight against a legend. like Nogueira, something like that. We'll see. I'm not sure. But Alexei Oleinik, I don't think he's fought. So he's basically fought a lot of the people in the top 10. So matching him up with someone like he fought Overeem, so maybe like a Curtis Blade. Well, Curtis Blades also won a lot of the fights lately, so that probably wouldn't make sense. Maybe like a Olenek Jr. Dos Santos, and Dos Santos has been on kind of a skid lately. I think that makes a little more sense, but he's definitely ready to get back in title contention for sure. Carla Esparza defeating Mishar Watterson by split decision. Close fight. Carla probably won 2-1. That's exactly what turned out to be true. So yeah, not much to say for that. I don't know where the two women go from here. I did see that Claudia Gadelha called out Carla Esparza. I think that's a fight that makes a lot of sense for both women. So Dana, go ahead and make that fight. Michelle Watterson, don't really know where she goes from here, but there's plenty of women in the top 15, top 10 in the division for her to fight. So I'm not too worried about that. Vicente Luque defeating Nico Price by doctor stoppage. Great fight. Great fight for both men. This is sort of one of those fights where it's just eye candy. I really don't know either man gained too much from the fight if they would have won. So it is what it is. Bryce Mitchell, everyone's favorite hillbilly, won again. We got an eccentric star on our hands, and I would love to see Bryce Mitchell take a big step up in competition for his next fight, for sure. And then Ryan Spann defeating Sam Alvey. I would have wanted Ryan Spann to knock Sam Alvey out, but it came down to a split decision. Old man Sam still has a chin. So, yeah, that sort of ends it for UFC 249. Again, fantastic card. Added a lot of, I don't know how you would describe it, either clarity or confusion to the heavyweight and the lightweight title picture. Kickstarted this whole McGregor, Gaethje, Khabib triangle. So I'm loving all of this in the sports world. I was super hyped. I was just so glad to have the fights back and just to have live sports again. I'm so thankful. So thank you, Dana. Thank you, ESPN. I love the fights from top to bottom. Feel a little bad about Tony Ferguson. Feel a little good about Justin Gaethje, so I guess they cancel each other out. So hyped for the lightweight title fight that's about to come up. So hyped. Don't know who would win. Honestly, don't know who would win. I think it's going to be a fantastic fight. All right. So, 3 days later, after UFC 249, was Smith versus Teixeira, UFC Jacksonville. This card was pretty good. I thought this card was actually way better than the namesake would suggest. Or maybe I'm just numb from UFC 249, seeing that many big names on the same card, that seeing lesser names on a card gave me the impression that it wouldn't deliver, but it definitely did. Brian Kelleher with the boom boom knockout of Hunter Azure, was probably the highlight of the prelims. So I won't go into all the details of the other prelim fights. Not that much of importance happened there. Sajara Eubanks defeated Sarah Morris. She's ready for a step up in competition as well. Anyways, I'll go from top down again. So I actually do have a lot of thought regarding. You know what? Before I go into it, I'm gonna take a sip of only the best natural spring water on the planet. Aquafina, if you're listening, give me a sponsorship. I badly need it. Anyways, the main event, Glover Teixeira defeating Anthony Smith by TKO in round 5. This was hard to watch. Now, this was probably the hardest fight to watch that I've watched in a while, or ever, honestly. It was hard to watch. I thought the fight could have been stopped in round 3, in round 4, definitely in round 5. I don't think he ever should have came out for round 5. Now, first of all, I want to dissect why Anthony Smith was in that situation in the first place. I think it has a lot to do with his corner. I really do. Now, immediately when the fight started to happen, you can hear Mark Montoya and James Krause, especially James Krause, was incredibly loud in the corner talking about how Anthony Smith should do this and do that. They'll go, "Oh, give me a 1-2 combo. Give me an uppercut followed by a kick." And he would do it, and you would hear James Krause say, "Thank you. Thank you, Smith." It was just instruction after instruction. And Anthony Smith has never had that much of a high output. And he sort of poured all his energy into round one, which left him in a vulnerable position to be caught in round two and could never recover from it, could never recover from the ground and pounds because he had he had no energy. And the ground and pounds were vicious. Glover Teixeira is no joke on the ground. He took so much punishment. You know, his face is all busted up at the end of round 4. And by the way, at the end of every round, the referee would kind of go check on him, especially at the end of round 3 and 4. He would not talk to him. He would be like, "Anthony, are you okay?" He would just walk back to the stool. He even at one point said, "My teeth are falling out." And his corner just said, "Okay, breathe, champ. Let's go out there and throw it all on the line." He is done. He has too much pride to take himself out. He is done. See that. Why do you let him go out for another minute and a half being punched on the ground? By the way, one thing I also didn't get at the time was Glover Teixeira not willing to finish him. There were so many points in the fight where Glover Teixeira could have threw 1 or 2 more punches, the fight would have been called off. But every time the referee would sort of twitch to move, he would stop, he would look for a rear naked choke, he wouldn't get it, he would come up, punch, 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 like 4 or 5 times when the referee steps in, look for a choke again. Anthony Smith would twist and turn, do what he has to do to not get taken out the fight, and the fight went on, taking unnecessary punishment. God knows how much lasting impact this would have had on Anthony Smith. It was just too much. It was honestly too much. It was sort of at the range of Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson. Although Tony Ferguson, because of how incredibly tough he is, he was not entirely out of the fight. He was still on his feet and he was still throwing shots. Anthony Smith was just going out there to get hammered, and they wouldn't stop the fight. You should protect your fighter. The corner should protect the fighter. They should have thrown the towel, I think, at the end of round 3. You let him get beat up, you could possibly make the argument for a 10-7 round in round 4, and you don't do anything in between the rounds? Your fighter tells you, "My teeth are falling out." You say, "Breathe, champ." Dude, he is out. He's out. And props to Lionheart, because he showed every bit of toughness that he has, but it's over. By the way, on the thing on why Glover was not trying to get the finish, it was later revealed. I thought at that time it was because Anthony Smith, before the fight even happened, was talking about how he would be the first guy to submit Glover Teixeira. And I thought when Teixeira was on top of him, there were points when they were having conversations. I thought Glover was saying, "Oh, you think you're going to be the first one to submit me? I'm going to be the first one to submit you." And that's why he's not stopping the fight. That's why he kept looking for a submission. That's what I thought. But I later listened to the press conference and realized just how nice of a human being Glover Teixeira is, that I knew that was not the case. That was when Glover revealed that he has actually broken his hand. That's why he wasn't so keen on keep punching Anthony Smith. So there's a lot of things happening that created this perfect storm. It was Anthony Smith who kept moving every time the referee told him to move. He wasn't defending himself, but he was moving. And it was Glover Teixeira with his broken hand, not willing to lay a couple more punches to get the finish. It was Anthony Smith's corner. I don't know what they're doing, but they're not stopping the fight. And all of this ended up in a fighter who has taken so much punishment, more than I think I've ever seen. And most of the time that he's taking that punishment, he's defenseless, just getting punched in the face. You should stop the fight when that happens. Anyways, I know I'm a little bit passionate on the subject, But I'm a huge Lionheart fan. I think he's one of the best fighters and one of the best human beings and a great analyst on the roster. That should not have taken that much punishment. Now you've taken him out of circulation for a long time. Who knows how he'll be comes his next fight? Who knows what lasting damage has happened? It just shouldn't have happened that way. It shouldn't have happened that way. All this talking got me thirsty. 1 second. All right. Next fight, intriguing heavyweight fight. Ben Rothwell defeating St Preux by split decision. Close fight. Insanely close fight. Action packed for like the last minute. Nothing really happening for the first 2 rounds. Rothwell was definitely the pressure fighter. I think Vince sort of gave into the notion that Rothwell has the knockout power and the power advantage, so he sort of ducked and ran for the entirety of the fight, besides the last round where he really poured it on with a sense of urgency. So split decision. I don't think I would have taken a draw. I think the fight is incredibly close, but split decision. I'm not too mad at that. St Preux looks good at heavyweight. I think the light heavyweight division is pretty open right now, so I wouldn't be surprised by a move back there. But we'll see what happens. Anyways, lightweight bout between Drew Dober and Alexander Hernandez. I saw Drew Dober's last fight. Fantastic performance. He absolutely burned the house down with this one, defeating Alexander Hernandez, who is a extraordinarily talented fighter, and ranked, and has got some huge wins in his UFC career. Drew Dober went in there lightning fast, accurate hands, heavy hands, got him out of there within 2 rounds without ever being in substantial trouble. I think Drew Dober, after the last couple performances, is ready for a big step up in competition. I think he's ready for a top 10 dude against someone like you know what? Throw him Cowboy Cerrone. That would be a good fight. Someone like a Cowboy, someone like a Paul Felder. You know, if Edson Barboza wants to come back up to lightweight, Edson Barboza. You know, these are all great fights. Or even Ally Quinta. Ally Quinta makes a lot of sense too. There's a lot of people in that range who I think they should be thrown to Drew Dober as a serious challenge, and we'll see how he handles that. But I predict we have a new top 10 in our hands in Drew Dober. Absolute barn burner of a performance by Drew Dober. All right, next up, Ricky Simón defeating Ray Borg, split decision. Great fight. Action-packed from start to finish. A great stylistic matchup of striking versus grappling, with Ricky Simón taking a little bit of the upper hand. So I'm not mad at this decision at all. I think the judges got it totally right. It should be a Ricky Simón win by split decision. Perfect. 2-1. So not much to say about that. I think Ricky Simón's ready to crack back into the top 15 after getting finished by Uriah Faber, which I think might just be a little bit of a fluke. I think, you know what? Match Ricky Simón up with Song Yadong, who came off a win as well. I'll talk about that later, but I think that's a fantastic fight. Anyways, Andrei Arlovski turning back the clocks a little bit, defeating Felipe Lins, a promotional newcomer. Whatever. Arlovski's sort of in that role now where he's just taking fights as a gatekeeper to who can really make some noise in the heavyweight division. I don't know who they're gonna throw to him next. I don't know. Do you want to see Ben Rothwell versus Andrei Arlovski? Not really. Anyways, Thiago Moises submitting Michael Johnson. Bad luck. I mean, Michael Johnson had him rock. Michael Johnson was in prime form in the first round before getting submitted. In round 2, Michael Johnson has lost a hell of a lot of fights lately. But I think it's just a bad luck streak. I think he still has what it takes in him to be a legitimate lightweight fighter in the UFC. So keep him, Dana. Give him a couple more fights to figure things out. He he used to be in the top 10, so give him at least that respect. You've gave BJ Penn, 50 fights. You can give Michael Johnson a couple more. Wouldn't hurt. Anyways, that about rounds out the main card for UFC Jacksonville again. Oh, by the way, I've never really talked about who I think Glover Teixeira and Anthony Smith should face next, huh? Yeah, rewind. I got so carried away by the whole stoppage thing. Anthony Smith coming off a loss against Glover Teixeira, who looked amazing at 40. I think Anthony Smith should fight someone someone who's a contender, you know, someone who is a contender that he hasn't fought yet, that could legitimately make some noise. You know what I think Anthony Smith should fight? I think it should work like this. I think it should be a tournament to figure out who would fight John Jones after. I think Jan Blachowicz is worthy of the next title shot, so I think he should fight Jones next, while Anthony Smith, Glover Teixeira, Thiago Marreta Santos, and Dominick Reyes should figure out who should fight Jones next. So for a fresh matchup, you pair Anthony Smith up with Thiago Santos, who knocked him out when they were both at middleweight. Give him a chance to take that one back. So Smith, Santos, it's going to be amazing. I think that fight makes a lot of sense for Santos to come back to as well. In terms of the timeline, it fits perfectly. You pair Glover Teixeira up with Dominick Reyes. And I would say whichever winner of these two fights has the most brilliant performance, you match him up with John Jones. Or Jan Blachowicz. Whatever. I think John Jones, but hey, we'll see who's the light heavyweight champion when the time comes. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on Smith versus Teixeira. Now, the fight that just happened yesterday is Alistair Overeem and Walt Harris. I think it is officially named UFC Florida. A very entertaining fight card. There's some absolute barn burners on the card. Some really, really good fights. Nate Landwehr, Darren Elkins was a mess of blood and shouting. I don't think the scorecards got it right. I think it's way closer than the 30-27 unanimous decision. But Landwehr moves on. Miguel Baeza defeating Matt Brown by knockout. A clean punch that knocked an incredibly durable veteran and Matt the Immortal Brown down. Miguel Baeza has some power in his hands. He is fast. He is young. He is hungry. And defeating Matt Brown is always a big deal. I think he's ready for something bigger in the welterweight division. I really think Miguel Baeza should get a big step up in competition. Now going into the main card, sort of going from top down again. Alistair Overeem, Walt Harris. Now we all know the backstory of Walt Harris, how incredibly sad it is about his stepdaughter Nia Blanchard. The world was rooting for Walt Harris, and for a brief moment in round one, we thought we were going to get what we asked for with a Walt Harris knockout, and him saying, "This is for you, Nia." Everyone in the arena is crying, while Alistair Overeem is still sitting there wondering where the hell his chin has been. Well, that didn't happen because Walt Harris burned out all his energy trying to chase for the finish, and Alistair Overeem, being the great grappler he is now, and the good veteran, all the experience that he had, was able to turn the fight around. And I always knew that the ground game was going to be Walt Harris's biggest downfall. I just didn't know how clueless he would be when he get on the ground. So, in the middle of the first round, Alistair Overeem sort of started riding Walt Harris, and that was it, basically. We found the formula. It was ground and pound, and trust me, the referee gave him all the chances to stop the fight. By the way, going back to the Anthony Smith thing, if this fight was stopped, how the hell was the Anthony Smith fight not stopped in round 4? Come on. Come on. Anyways. Referee gave Walt Harris all the chances, but once Alistair Overeem, he caught him with that high kick, then a punch, knocked him down. Once Walt was on the ground and Overeem was on him, Overeem was way too good of a grappler, and Walt Harris just didn't know what to do, just kept getting short punches to the face until the referee had to mercifully stop the fight. I feel bad for Walt Harris, of course. Can't imagine what he's going through right now. But then again, like Dana said, just being there should be a win. So Walt Harris, you're probably not listening by a long shot. But if you are, just know that Anaya would have been extremely proud of your performance. You came in there and you gave it everything you got. And this whole thing did not knock you down. And you are going to come back stronger. With that said, Alistair Overeem turning back the clock. Good fight, good performance. Sort of did what Alistair Overeem does at 40 years of age. I think the next fight for Overeem should be Derek Lewis. I think that's a great fight to make. And Derek Lewis just came back from a win against Ilir Latifi. Overeem Lewis, make it happen. Headline of fight night. You know, is a very classic stylistic matchup with Overeem being primarily a grappler now versus Lewis, who is a big power puncher. We'll see what happens. I think that makes the most sense in terms of the rankings. In terms of Walt Harris, you know, give him someone respectable in the top 15. I think it is. I think it deserves another crack at a top 15 fighter with his recent string of finishes. Plus, he has a great backstory. We could sell any card as a headliner, definitely. So let me just, you know what? I'm gonna take a look at the rankings at heavyweight. I'm gonna make a fight for Walt Harris right freaking now. Heavyweight, blah blah blah. Junior Dos Santos would be a pretty good fight, although he's ranked a little bit too front of the line. Or if Cain Velasquez is ever thinking about a return, that could be a great fight. You know, there are a lot of great fights to make in the heavyweight division, and Walt Harris has no shortage of opponents. So he's gonna come back stronger. I know that. Yeah. Anyways, co-main event: Claudia Gadelha defeating Angela Hill. That was I thought it was a robbery. It was like a bank robbery. Claudia Gadelha should not have won. I think Angela Hill pretty handedly won 2-1. But then again, I'm not a professional judge. Even though I doubt that the professional judges know more than I do, I'm not a professional judge. So it is what it is. Claudia Gadelha right back into contention, calling out Carla Esparza, former champion. Interesting fight for both. I don't know where Angela Hill goes from here, but she definitely deserves someone ranked. She definitely deserves someone ranked. I think she basically won the fight. She won the fight, you know. I would give Claudia Gadelha someone like a Nina Ansaroff, someone like that in the strawweight division. You know. Anyways, yeah. So Angela Hill, the best Angela Hill we've ever seen. Claudia Gadelha right back into title contention. Now, a very intriguing featherweight bout in Dan Ige versus Edson Barboza. By split decision, won by Dan Ige. I thought Barboza won the fight. There was some. I did not agree with any of the decisions on the card, to be honest. On the main card, 4 decisions. I had it for the opponent, the losing side. So I thought Edson Barboza won the fight. He looked amazing at featherweight. Lean, ripped, fast, strong, can still take shots from Dan Ige. Chopping at the legs, kicking the body. Dan Ige was tough, for sure. He caught Barboza with some big punches, but he wasn't stringing them all together as well as Barboza was doing. So, I don't know. I didn't agree with the decision. I hope this doesn't deter Barboza from the featherweight division. I would love to see him give this another crack. Give him another dude in the top 15. I would honestly think he deserves another person in the top 15. With the legacy that Edson Barboza brings, this shouldn't be the only crack at a ranked fighter in the featherweight division that Edson gets. So yeah, I thought Edson won, and I hope he stays in featherweight. Next up, middleweight bout, Krzysztof Jotko defeating Eric Anders by unanimous decision. Someone gave it a 30-27. Whoever done that is stupid, okay? I thought Eric Anders won. I don't know what y'all see when you are looking at that fight, but Eric Anders controlled Jocko against the cage for most of the 15 minutes. A lot of people are talking about how that's not effective. He didn't connect with any of his punches, sort of leaning on him. He's controlling him. He's dictating the action. That's got to count for something. So I'm probably the only person thinking this, but I thought Eric Anders won that 2-1. But someone gave Krzysztof Jotko 30-27. So apparently, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Anyways, don't get me started on decisions. They're always stupid. Song Yadong defeating Marlon Vera. That's another one. If Angela Hill losing to Claudia Gadelha is a bank robbery, Song Yadong losing to Marlon Vera is like someone propelling down from the roof of Fort Knox and stealing all the gold that the U.S. currency is based on. This is a robbery. Okay, Marlon Vera very clearly won it 2-1. I don't think you can get any clearer in MMA. Somehow Song Yadong won 2-1. But then again, I'm Chinese. Well, I'm Taiwanese. Song Yadong's Chinese. We got the bond going on. So Asian power, whatever. Song Yadong, good for you. I think you should definitely go on to fight someone good. Give him someone ranked. You know. I think he deserves it anyways. He showed off his toughness and his grittiness, and he's definitely a world-class fighter after the fight with Chito Vera. But Vera should not have lost that fight. So that is, again, straight off bullcrap. But, yeah. I think that basically concludes the 3 cards that we had over this past week. Exciting fights. I'm so happy that fights are back. Although there's no previews right now, so I don't really know how I'm going to come up with the next episode of the ChowDownChou MMA show. But I thought I'd break down the past 3 cards that we had in Jacksonville, Florida for you all. Now, a piece of news that I really want to talk about, and I swear this will be the last thing that I talk about, is Francis Ngannou, after defeating Jairzinho Rosenstrike, is now calling out Jon Jones. And Jon Jones responded on Twitter saying, "Oh, this is a great fight. If UFC is willing to bring out the money, let's do it." Now, it is a great fight, intriguing matchup. I would pay any amount of money in the world to see that fight. But then again, Jon Jones and Francis Ngannou, I don't think both men has anything to gain from this fight. If they fight a heavyweight and Ngannou loses, people are going to cast doubt on his ability as a number 1 contender. Why does he deserve the next title shot? If Jon Jones loses, he's not the GOAT anymore. So neither man has too much to gain from this fight besides money. So I don't really think this is a great idea to make that fight. And it's just basically social media talk. I think Jon Jones should go ahead and fight Jan Blachowicz. I think Francis Ngannou should just get his ass in the gym, train hard, eat some horse meat, and wait for the winner of DC Stipe 3. And if DC Stipe 3 doesn't happen soon enough, make Cormier Ngannou for the interim title shot. Okay, Dana? Listen to me. I'm telling you how to fix the heavyweight division, so just listen to me, Dana. Make Cormier Ngannou interim title shot. Jairzinho Rosenstrike is coming off a loss. Pair him up with, I don't know, feed him to Walt Harris. I think that would be a fantastic fight. Do something like that. Dana, I'm giving you ideas, okay? Listen. Anyways, I'm extremely thankful for the fights being back. Finally have something to talk about. And I can't wait to watch fights with y'all. There's going to be new content going on. Just search ChowDownChou on YouTube. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get the podcast from. And yeah, great week in Jacksonville. And we shall wait for the next UFC Fight Night event, May 31st. I don't know where it's going to be. I don't even know where UFC 250 is going to be. I don't think we know that yet. We know Amanda Nunes is defending her title against Felicia Spencer, which I already did a breakdown on the first edition of the ChowDownChou MMA Show. So go check that out if you want my opinion. Yeah, but that's that. So signing out, again, ChowDownChou MMA Show. So, remember to subscribe. Hit that like button. The only podcast where you can hear the word Chow twice in the title. Great tagline, isn't it? All right. I will see you all in the next edition.